The DC Animated Movie Universe, or the DCAMU, is a series of animated movies surrounding the DC Universe, which was mostly adapted from the New 52 era of that universe, which, like the New 52 era in the comics, began with Flashpoint. The universe began in 2013 with Justice League: The Flashpoint Paradox releasing just 1 month after the start of the DCEU, Man of Steel, and then, 13 movies later, the DC Animated Movie Universe ended with Justice League: Dark Apokolips War in 2020, which successfully capped off this universe in such a way that, in my opinion at least, it retroactively makes you care more about the universe that was leading up to it, by retroactively connecting things that weren't previously connected, or if they weren't connected all that well, making the whole experience of the universe far better with just one movie. Now the universe has been replaced by what was dubbed by fans as the Tomorrowverse as of 2020, with the release of their first movie, Superman: Man of Tomorrow. But let's look back at the DCAMU timeline, and like I've previously done with the Tomorrowverse, let's go over every superhero who has appeared in this universe, and this video, unlike the Tomorrowverse one, will be the final version, so make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more videos like this one, and let's begin. As I referenced in my intro, the DCAMU began with Justice League: The Flashpoint Paradox, which showcases the two timelines that lead into the DCAMU, those being the pre-Flashpoint and Flashpoint timelines, and I was originally going to include all of those heroes in this video, but the script ended up being so long that I had to cut it out, and I'll only be covering the main DCAMU, and if it's requested enough, I'll possibly make a separate video in the future about those two original timelines, together in one video. The Flashpoint Paradox ended with our introduction to this newly formed timeline through the perspective of Barry Allen, aka The Flash, the first character introduced in this universe. He's voiced by Justin Chambers in this scene, but will go on to be voiced by Christopher Gorham in all of his subsequent appearances. In this scene, Barry's sporting a New 52-inspired yellow highlight suit, which he would never be seen wearing again in this universe. Additionally, Barry remembers not only his pre-Flashpoint life and the events of Flashpoint, but also his other life in the Flashpoint timeline, which is something that he would not reference again or seem to be aware of about until the very last movie, Apokolips War, and also seems like something that he would absolutely be driven crazy about. He has 3 separate lives just running around in his head as real memories. On top of that, Barry meets Batman for the first time in the following movie, meaning the scene is definitely not Flash's first appearance chronologically. In fact, it probably takes place near the end of the universe, between Flash's pre-Apokolips War appearance in Reign of the Superman, and then Batman Hush, where Batman changes to a blue costume, so it's in between those two movies, and you can just explain away Barry's costume in the scene as a temporary thing that he wore, let's say for a year or so between the on-screen events. His actual suit is mostly the same, just with the lines being far less prominent and black, which he would wear in all of his subsequent appearances, which is all of the movies you now see on screen. In this universe, Barry would found the Justice League, marry Iris West, and take on at least 2 separate Kid Flashes as sidekicks, those being Wally and Wallace West, but it would basically just be in the beginning with the first Flashpoint, and the end with the second, where he would have a very significant role throughout the DC Animated Movie Universe. In Apokolips War, he survived 2 years of being used as a battery for Apokolips, where, just like how he erased the previous 2 timelines and created the DCAMU timeline, he now erases this one and creates the Tomorrowverse. Now, while Barry's role in this universe is really only that significant at the beginning at the end, Bruce Wayne, aka Batman, who also debuted in this movie, would basically go on to be the main character of the DCAMU, appearing in every movie aside from Suicide Squad: Hell to Pay, Teen Titans: The Judas Contract, and Wonder Woman: Bloodlines, which is 80% of this universe, with most of these appearances being significant or starring roles in the case of 4 of them. In this universe, Batman is a founding member of the Justice League, establishes the Bat Family, is the adoptive father of Dick Grayson, and the biological father of Damian Wayne, while Jason Todd and Tim Drake do not seem to exist. And throughout his DC Animated Movie Universe career, he has worn 3 different on-screen Batsuits, including the black New 52-inspired suit, which he wears for most of the universe, up until Batman Hush, where he switches to a blue Batman Hush-inspired suit, and finally the God of Wisdom-inspired suit he wore as a brainwashed slave of Darkseid. Although it is also confirmed that he used to wear this classic yellow symbol blue suit in the past, which Dick Grayson wears in one of the movies. It would be breaking out of that brainwashing that is the last thing this version of Batman ever does before the timeline is reset. And then there's the second movie, Justice League War, which introduces the rest of the founding members of the Justice League, which is a lineup that takes the New 52 lineup, but replaces Aquaman with Shazam. Probably because they thought the New 52 version of Shazam was going to end up being very popular, but just look at the box office total of Aquaman versus the total of the 3 Shazam movies. Aquaman alone made more. So maybe this was a bit of a mistake. So first and probably foremost is Clark Kent, aka Kal-El, also known as Superman, who doesn't appear as frequently as Batman, but does take center stage in this universe, more so than any other member of the Justice League that isn't Batman, initially and for most of the characters' appearances, that being War, Throne of Atlantis, Justice League vs. Teen Titans, and Justice League Dark. He's based off of the New 52, darker and edgier version of the character. He wears the New 52 suit, and even dates Wonder Woman, but it's in his more significant roles at the tail end of the universe, where he's honestly a much better character based off of the classic version of Superman. Appearing as the main character in what I consider the best Superman movie of all time, The Death of Superman, Superman transitions to his lighter, hopeful, more Superman persona as he falls in love with Lois Lane. The transformation is completed through his death and rebirth as he first sports the black suit, complete with the mullet, and finally the Superman Reborn inspired suit. That's definitely the pinnacle of this version of the character's design, as he wears this suit in Reign of the Superman, Batman Hush, and Justice League Dark Apokolips War, in which he also has this original kryptonite infused design. He wears a Lexosuit and this infused with Trigon design, which is interesting, but he finishes his life back in the Superman suit, attempting to bring hope to a broken world in true Superman fashion, but John Constantine and the Flash are not convinced. Superman is voiced by Alan Tudyk in Justice League War, but by Jerry O'Connell in every other subsequent appearance. Diana of Themyscira, aka Wonder Woman, is played by Rosario Dawson, and like Superman, is initially based off of her New 52 interpretation all the way up until she gets her own movie, which includes all of the movies you see on screen, sporting a New 52 inspired suit with added blue areas throughout the design. Diana was the main character of one movie called Wonder Woman Bloodlines, where in the movie she transitions into a more DCAMU and Rebirth inspired look and character. In her final appearance, she is turned into a cyborg by Darkseid. She manages to break out of the programming and then watch as Barry Allen resets the timeline. Some point in the timeline, Diana took on a sidekick in Donna Troy, but at no point do we ever see these two characters on screen together. Victor Stone, aka Cyborg, is played by Shamar Moore throughout the DCAMU, based on the New 52 version throughout, appearing in Justice League War with this very messy apocalyptic design, which is a design that is fixed to a more basic New 52 design, where the only skin that shows is on the face in Justice League Throne of Atlantis. He then appeared alongside his rightful place with the Teen Titans in Justice League vs. the Teen Titans, before returning to the Justice League for all the movies you now see on screen, where in Apokolips War he'd be used as a camera through which Darkseid can learn about the Justice League's plans. Cyborg is then fused to Apokolips and in the end sacrifices himself to send Darkseid, Trigon, and all of the Paradooms into a black void. Hal Jordan, aka the Green Lantern, kind of felt like the main character of Justice League War, where he's played by Justin Kirk, but the character would basically be completely abandoned after that, appearing in a relatively decently sized role in Throne of Atlantis and a very small role in Death of Superman, where he's played by Nathan Fillion in both, but then his only appearances after that are dialogueless appearances in Reign of the Superman and even Justice League Dark Apokolips War, with the latter killing him off in the opening few minutes, despite the fact that he's a founding member of the Justice League and he's the only one who died in this opening fight. He's also never given an updated design, and yeah, I get he was annoying in War, but they managed to fix Superman. I think they should have at least tried with Green Lantern. There should have been a Green Lantern movie in this universe. And in an arguably even worse case than Green Lantern is Shazam, who's taken a lot of L's in the New 52 inspired movie universes that DC has put out. He had a large role in War and in Throne of Atlantis, but then, despite the Justice League appearing several more times, Shazam just never appears for some reason until Apokolips War, where he doesn't have any lines, has his leg cut off and eye scratched blind in the opening few minutes, before returning for like 15 seconds of screen time just to be seemingly killed off by Paradooms. Shazam is played by Sean Astin, and Billy Batson is played by Zach Callison. Movie 3 is Son of Batman, which is about and introduces one of the universe's primary protagonists after Superman and Batman, Damian Wayne, also known as Robin. Damian is played by Stuart Allen, is a member of the Bat Family and Teen Titans, and a former member of the League of Assassins. Damian appears in more projects than even Superman, including a leading role in all of the movies you see on screen, plus the only short that the DCAMU ever released, Nightwing and Robin. He appeared in significant roles in the Judas Contract and Apokolips War, with him being one of the 4 heroes to be on the Apokolips War poster, alongside Constantine, Superman, and Raven, and also he cameos in Death of Superman and Batman Hush. Basically, he appears everywhere in this universe, and is certainly a leading character where he's shown to grow in both age and character development, coming to a head in his very large role in Apokolips War, where he dies at the hands of Darkseid, is resurrected by Raven, and his world comes to an end as he kisses Raven as the timeline is reset. In also a very large role is Dick Grayson, aka Robin, aka Batman, aka Nightwing, who's voiced by Sean Mayer, and interestingly has had more costumes than any other character in this universe. Dick wears this Young Justice-like Nightwing costume in all of these appearances, also wears the Batsuit in Batman Bad Blood, where he takes a more leading role, and then in his unequivocal main character appearance of Teen Titans The Judas Contract, we first see Dick as Robin in a flashback, and then in the red New 52 inspired suit in the present. He then appears in Batman Hush wearing a blue version of that suit, and finally in Apokolips War, where he's killed by a Paradoom, subsequently resurrected through a Lazarus pit by Damian Wayne, but never regains his sanity and is erased from existence, lying on Starfire's lap wearing a straitjacket. Dick was a founding member and the leader of the Teen Titans, where he's in a relationship with Starfire, is a member of the Bat Family, where he grows to see Damian as his brother, and is one of the most recurring characters in this universe. Appearing for the first time in Justice League Throne of Atlantis is Arthur Curry, who becomes Aquaman and is voiced by Matt Lanter, and like most of the characters in this universe, is more so based on his New 52 interpretation. Aquaman acts as the main character of this movie, but then goes on to have a rather small role in all of his subsequent appearances. In Apokolips War, he's killed off in the opening invasion, just like Green Lantern. Mera is given a much more significant role in this universe than she mostly had for her comic history, as she appears for the first time in Throne of Atlantis and joins the Justice League. She then appears as a member in the Death of Superman and Apokolips War, and in the latter, she, like Wonder Woman, is turned into an apocalyptian cyborg and programmed to obey Darkseid. Mera does break through the programming, but all she could do is mourn her losses, including Aquaman, as the universe is reset. In a very nice, clear case of planning ahead, John Henry Irons, voiced by Carrie Payton, debuts in Throne of Atlantis as well, in a scene where he's saved by Superman. This would be referenced in a movie from 3 years later, The Death of Superman, now voiced by Cress Williams. John thanks Superman for saving his life, and after the Man of Steel's death, is inspired to begin building a suit of armor. In Reign of Superman, 4 years after first appearing, Steel finally debuts. Steel's final appearance is in Apokolips War, where he's not shown to have joined the Justice League, but does eventually get killed by Paradooms. Overall, there was all this setup towards him, and then he only really had a large role in one movie. The end credit scene of Throne of Atlantis set up a Legion of Doom situation, and as such gave us our first look at this world's version of Lex Luthor, who at the time was voiced by Steve Blum. This setup only really led to a small part in Justice League vs. the Teen Titans. Then Lex appeared, now played by Rainn Wilson, in Death and Reign of Superman. In Death of Superman, Lex helped fight Doomsday for selfish reasons, but still, and in the end credit scene of Reign, Lex actually joins the Justice League, probably inspired by his membership in some of the New 52 comics. This membership validates his placement in this video of heroes, despite the fact that he's Lex Luthor.
Oh, come on, it's Lex flippin' Luthor.
Lex then appears in Batman Hush, and finally in Apokolips War, where he is a double agent working for Apokolips, but feeding information to the Resistance. Lex dies at the hands of Paradooms near the end. Interestingly, Batman vs. Robin saw the introduction of 3 female characters, all through cameos, and all will go on to have relatively large roles, at least in one movie. There's Coriander, aka Starfire, making her debut in this universe in a flirtatious call with Nightwing, played by Carrie Walgren. There's always a question of who Dick Grayson will be paired up with in any given continuity, either Batgirl or Starfire. This universe clearly chooses Starfire, as the two are a confirmed couple in all of her appearances. These appearances include another Cole cameo in Batman Bad Blood, finally making a full appearance in Justice League vs. Teen Titans, followed by the Judas Contract, as well as Apokolips War, and like the aforementioned Wonder Woman and Mera, she survives the movie thanks to being turned into a cyborg and programmed to serve Apokolips. Starfire's life ends with a broken-minded Nightwing lying on her lap. Starfire wasn't a founding member of the Teen Titans, but she seemingly was their first new recruit, and at one point, their leader. At one point in the movie, Batman is put under a hallucination by the Court of Owls where he sees a potential future where Damian becomes a Court of Owls sponsored Batman who kills the rest of the Bat family, with one of those Bat family members being Kate Kane, aka Batwoman, who would only go on to appear for the first time fully in Batman Bad Blood, but this does mean that she, for one, did become Batwoman before the events of Batman vs. Robin, and also, probably also teamed up with Batman at some point. Kate would basically be not the main character, but one of the main characters of Batman Bad Blood, where she's played by Yvonne Strahovski, and would officially join the Bat family. She then has a cameo in the deaths of Superman at Superman's funeral, and then, despite being basically a main character in one of the movies, Batwoman's role in this universe would come to a very, very minimal end, as she has no more than a cameo in Apokolips War, fighting Paradooms, where she's presumably killed. Another one of the fallen heroes in that hallucination, introduced for the first time in this movie, is Selina Kyle, aka Catwoman, who would then appear in another cameo in Batman Bad Blood in a sex dream of Bruce's. Man, this universe could be wild sometimes. And then Catwoman finally got something to do and a relatively large role in Batman Hush, where she sports the same costume she wears in the comic Batman Hush and is kind of like Batman's sidekick in the movie, which is why she's in this video. She's a hero. Catwoman is voiced in this movie by Jennifer Morrison, and although Batman and Catwoman spend the movie falling deeper in love, they end the movie separating entirely. Catwoman doesn't appear in Apokolips War, but considering the death toll on Earth and the fact that she's just a regular person, it's highly likely that she died, although not completely impossible that she survived. This universe has two Batman movies in a row, now with Batman Bad Blood. I told you Batman has a very large role in this movie, however, it can be argued that Bruce Wayne is not the main character, and instead that goes to Kate Kane and Dick Grayson and Damian Wayne, and has a larger focus on the Bat family. Most of the expanded Bat family, like Batman, Nightwing, Robin, and Batwoman, have already been introduced at this point, but this movie expands it even more, including the introduction of Luke Fox, aka Batwing, played by Gaius Charles. Luke does have a very large role in this movie, but that would definitely be where he peaks, just like Batwoman, as he only returns for Apokolips War and has the same cameo that Batwoman has, fighting Paradooms, where he's presumably killed. Then, introduced in the end credit scene, Barbara Gordon, aka Batgirl, sporting the purple New 52 Burnside suit, making her cameo debut. Batgirl goes on to have a not too large, not too small role in Batman Hush, where she's played by Peyton List. Like Batwoman and like Batwing, Batgirl goes out on what is practically a whimper as she cameos in Apokolips War, fighting and is killed by Paradooms. That brings us to Justice League vs. the Teen Titans, which introduces us to the secondary superhero team of this universe, the Teen Titans, a few of whom, like Nightwing, Starfire, and the newest recruit, Robin, we've already met. This movie introduces Rachel Roth, aka Raven, who goes on to have the largest role in this universe out of all of the non-Bat Family Teen Titans members, especially in Apokolips War. Rachel is voiced by Tessa Farmiga, sports the classic, thankfully non-New 52 Raven design, and is made much younger than most of her comic book Teen Titans generation, and because of her age, is coupled up with Damian Wayne. Raven appears in Justice League vs. the Teen Titans, where her father Trigon is the main villain, in Judas Contract, with a bit of a smaller role, and finally Justice League Dark Apokolips War, where she had a large enough role to be one of the 4 heroes to appear on the poster. Raven's last acts are to summon her father to stop Darkseid, resurrect Damian Wayne, and kiss him as the world comes to an end. But since Damian did in fact die and Starfire is a cyborg, Raven is the only member of the Teen Titans who survives and remains undamaged until the end. Except, in all the ways that the entire world coming to an end would emotionally damage you. Garfield Logan, aka Beast Boy, is played by Brandon Suhu, wearing a slightly new take on the classic red Beast Boy suit in both Justice League vs. the Teen Titans and the Judas Contract, the latter of which he had a fairly large role being the main character affected by the betrayal of Terra in the movie, which, by the way, I will not be including Terra in this list. She is a member of the Teen Titans, but she's mostly a villain, not a hero. Beast Boy, alongside most of the Teen Titans, dies at the hands of Paradooms in Apokolips War, which can be dubbed the Teen Titans Massacre of the Apokolips War. And in the opening flashbacks of Teen Titans The Judas Contract, taking place 5 years prior to the events of that movie, we see that Beast Boy was either a founding member of the Teen Titans in this universe, or at the very least a very early recruit. Plus, since Dick Grayson did leave while he was becoming Nightwing before returning, Beast Boy is the longest lasting member. Also in this scene, he's wearing this suit that is basically identical to what he wears on Teen Titans while a member of the Doom Patrol, and without the mask, it's still the same costume as what he typically wears on that show. Jaime Reyes, aka the Blue Beetle, who's the third Blue Beetle in the comics, but the only one to seem to exist in this world. Jaime is played by Jake T. Austin in Justice League vs. the Teen Titans and the Judas Contract, and then dies in the Teen Titans Massacre of the Apokolips War. Moving on to Justice League Dark, another one of the main characters of the DCAMU is introduced following what I consider to be the main characters Batman, Superman, and Robin, as John Constantine, played by Matt Ryan, will go on to basically be the main character of every project he appears in. This includes Justice League Dark, where he's, the main character, Constantine City of Demons, where he's the titular character, and then even Justice League Dark Apokolips War, the finale of the universe, has John Constantine as the main character, where he's seen to have joined the Justice League and settled down with Zatanna. Constantine would be a key player in taking Earth back from Darkseid, but seeing no better option, it's John Constantine who convinces the Flash to reset the timeline. Zatanna, or Zatanna Zatara, is played by Camilla Luddington, appearing in Justice League Dark and Apokolips War, having a very large role in the former, and a small yet important one in the latter, where she dies in the opening attack on Apokolips, but acts as the core of Constantine's shame throughout the movie. As it turns out, she used a spell to compel him to flee. Zatanna is last seen reviving Constantine from what seems like heaven, and that's the last we see of the character. Jason Blood and his counterpart Etrigan, both played by Ray Chase, debut in Justice League Dark. Jason Blood, however, dies in Justice League Dark, leaving Etrigan without a human host, so he remains in that form indefinitely. Etrigan returns for Apokolips War with a very large role. Depressed from the current state of the world and the lack of action, Etrigan regains his enthusiasm for combat in his final fight on Apokolips, as he's killed by a reprogrammed cyborg Wonder Woman before she regains her control over herself. Alec Holland, also known as Swamp Thing, played by Roger Cross, appears in Justice League Dark and Apokolips War, and in both he reluctantly allies himself with John Constantine. The last time we see Swamp Thing, he easily destroys one of Darkseid's planet-destroying Reapers before being attacked by Paradooms, but considering who he is, it's more than likely that Swamp Thing cannot be physically killed, so he was presumably still lurking about as the world was being reset. A physical manifestation of the House of Mystery, Black Orchid, played by Colleen Villard, makes her debut in Justice League Dark before making her final appearance in Apokolips War. In both movies, she seemed to have been killed, however, since she seemed to revive herself in the first movie, it can be assumed she still exists as well. And by the way, speaking of House of Mystery, I'm well aware that Constantine House of Mystery is tied to this universe. However, it's set in the Tomorrowverse, so I talk about it in the Tomorrowverse video. Link will be in the description and in the cards. The final member of Justice League Dark is Boston Brand, aka Deadman, played by Nicholas Turturro. Deadman only appeared in this one movie, as he ends Justice League Dark's spirit bonding with the House of Mystery, which is presumably where he is as the Apokolips War takes place, since he does not appear in Apokolips War. Justice League Dark also greatly expands the actual Justice League, as 3 iconic Justice League members are confirmed to have been added to their ranks off-screen between Justice League vs. Teen Titans and Justice League Dark, starting with the second Green Lantern, John Stewart. John Stewart, played by Roger Cross, fills in for Hal Jordan as both the Green Lantern of Sector 2814 and member of the Justice League for 1 week while Hal is on Oa. This remains true to his second appearance, which is in Apokolips War, where he's not seen among the Justice League while Hal is, and instead, being on Oa, is killed directly by Darkseid, as he kills everyone on Oa with magma transported from Earth. which is just brutal. Qatar Hall, aka Hawkman, is introduced as another new addition to the Justice League, although he does not have any lines. Hawkman actually goes on to have a decent amount of appearances and a larger role than Jon Stewart ever did, as he appears in The Death of Superman and Reign of the Superman, with no lines in either. And finally, Justice League Dark Apokolips War, where he's turned into an apocalyptic cyborg, but even then, does not have any lines. Hawkman appears as a member of the Justice League in 4 movies with several scenes in each, but never gets a single line and therefore never gets assigned a voice actor. Additionally, in deep contrast to the DCAMU, Hawkman appears several times, but Hawkgirl never does. Finally, J'onn J'onzz appears for the first time, played by Nyambi. Wait, is that really his name? He's like a Mario situation? Anyway, Martian Manhunter goes on to appear in The Death of Superman, Reign of the Superman, and Justice League Dark Apokolips War, and while he doesn't do much in any of these appearances, he is the final character in this video, following the likes of Wonder Woman, Mera, Hawkman, and also the original Victor Stone, who was turned into an apocalyptic cyborg and programmed to serve Darkseid. Martian Manhunter can't really do much, however, as the world is reset. This next one is an interesting one, as Teen Titans The Judas Contract opens up with a flashback to the early days of the Teen Titans, which seems to confirm that they were founded by these 5 heroes, but also that they formed before the Justice League. This team is mostly inspired by the original Teen Titans lineup, including Dick Grayson's Robin as the leader. Introduced for the first time is Karen Beecher, aka Bumblebee, played by Masasa Moyo. Not appearing in either of the present-day Teen Titans movie events, Bumblebee clearly left the team at some point, but is seen to have rejoined the Titans in Apokolips War just in time to be killed by Paradooms. More interestingly is Kid Flash, who just based on the rest of the team you'd think is Wally West, and while that would make the most sense, he's not ginger. His brownish hair looks more like Bart Allen, especially with the suit that's almost identical to Bart's Kid Flash suit on Young Justice. However, according to the producer of the movie, James Tucker, this is actually meant to be not Wally or Bart, but Barry Allen, who I guess in this universe got his powers as a teenager and for some reason called himself Kid Flash, as if there's a Flash out there at all. This explanation was completely rejected by basically everyone, and the character is listed as Wally West on every wiki he appears on. This is helped by the fact that he's voiced by Jason Spisak, who voices Wally on Young Justice. So yeah, I'm going to do what most people seem to be doing, and I'm rejecting the notion that this is somehow a teenage Barry Allen, even if it is supported by the fact that Wally West never appears again. However, that could be explained away the same way it was explained in the New 52 comics. Abracadabra erased all memory of him from existence as he stuck him in the Speed Force. The same exact thing happened in the New 52 comics. Just as interestingly is the inclusion of Roy Harper, aka Speedy, played by Crispin Freeman. Like Bumblebee, Roy seems to have left the Titans before rejoining just in time to be killed by Paradooms, and while he is possibly Arsenal or Red Arrow at that point, it is never confirmed. What's really interesting about Roy Harper is that he's the only Green Arrow related character to appear in this universe. Black Canary and even Green Arrow never do, and are never even mentioned. The only hint towards Oliver's existence is the fact that Roy Harper is Speedy, and I guess Green Arrow must have trained him. My headcanon here is that Green Arrow and Black Canary were very early heroes in this universe, debuting around the same time as Batman, which is why Speedy debuts around the same time as Robin, but both Green Arrow and Black Canary either died or retired sometime before the debut of the Justice League, which is why they aren't around at all. These two are, in my opinion, probably the biggest missing characters from this universe that I would have really liked to see. Completing this universe's Fab, not 5, but Fab 4, because Aqualad never appears, is Donna Troy, aka Wonder Girl, who, completely outside of her generation, appears as a young teenager in the end credits of the Judas Contract. Donna returns in Apokolips War, where literally the only thing she ever does in this universe is be massacred by Paradooms. She never has any lines, and is never seen alongside Wonder Woman, who is presumably her sister and mentor, but that's never confirmed either. The next movie is a bit of an unusual one in this universe, that being Suicide Squad Hell to Pay, as it focuses more so on villains, most of whom will not be considered heroes for this video, and yet is the most connected to Flashpoint because it features Eobard Thawne. Both heroes who are introduced in this movie do not ever return. This includes Ben Turner, aka Bronze Tiger, played by Billy Brown, as he dies at the hands of Professor Zoom. Then there's the first original character hero created for this universe, a character named Steel Maxim, voiced by Glenn Grunberg, who is a male stripper who's chosen to be the newest Dr. Fate. He is fairly incompetent, however, and is seen as a bit of a mistake made by Naboo. He does not reappear in Apokolips War, so it could be assumed that either he's just too scared to be Dr. Fate, or he was stripped, pun intended, of the Helmet of Fate, and maybe Naboo simply never found a replacement, because the last one was such a big mistake. The next movie is The Death of Superman, which is where all the remaining Supermen, who would go on to be the focuses of Reign of the Supermen, appear. This includes the Eradicator, who in this universe can be considered a hero. In a suit ripped right out of the original comic, the Eradicator is voiced by Charles Halford, and appears for the first time in a cameo in Death before having a large role in Reign. He isn't seen or mentioned in Apokolips War, so it's likely he either died or more likely went offline after not needing to protect Superman any longer. Cameoing in The Death of Superman, Connor Kent, aka Superboy, goes on to have a starring role in Reign of the Supermen, where he's voiced by Cameron Monaghan, and then a dialogueless role in Apokolips War, where he seemed to have joined the Teen Titans. Having survived the Teen Titans massacre that killed everybody but himself, Raven and Damian, Superboy eventually dies at the hands of Paradooms near the end of the movie. Superboy's design is based off of his original 90s outfit, which is also what he's currently wearing in the comics, which is very different from his black t-shirt and pants. Although in his first appearance in the end credit scene of The Death of Superman, he wears a New 52 inspired suit. It looks ripped right out of the comics, although we don't see it for much. Sandwiched between the two Superman movies is Constantine City of Demons, which introduces a character named Asa the Healer, also known as Nightmare Nurse, who, despite being a demon, can be considered a hero in this world and this movie. She is not seen again, so her status is completely unknown up until her erasure, alongside the rest of the world. Reign of the Superman is the first movie in this universe to not feature any new heroes. Ironic, because the original concept of the comic was that there are 4 new Supermen, but all of them have already been introduced. The same is true for Batman Hush and Wonder Woman Bloodlines. They don't introduce anyone new and instead focus entirely on characters who have already been introduced in previous movies in the worlds of the Trinity. This brings us to the finale of the DCAMU, Justice League Dark Apokolips War, where, despite being the end, introduces nearly a dozen heroes. That being said, none of these heroes have lines, and most of them are just members of the Green Lantern Corps, and also, they all die in this movie. There's Wallace West, aka Kid Flash, the newest member of the Teen Titans, with a design based off of his original New 52 alternate timeline, alternate future gray or silver costume. Wallace dies in the Teen Titans Paradoom Massacre. Every other character is a member of the Green Lantern Corps, killed when Darkseid destroys Oa and kills the entire Corps. Man, the Green Lantern Corps have it rough in all of the timelines of this universe. Like in the Tomorrowverse, they're all massacred as well. The most important of these characters is the third and final human Green Lantern from this universe, Guy Gardner. There's also Arisia, Arcus Trumuk, Chaselon, Gallia Zed, Green Man, Kilowog, Palaqua, Salak, and finally the Guardians of the Universe. Again, none of them have lines, and all of them die at the hands of Darkseid. So to cap off this video, I'm going to be recapping every single hero from this universe in categories, starting with every member of the Justice League. This includes Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, Hal Jordan, Cyborg, Shazam, Aquaman, Mera, Lex Luthor, Hawkman, Martian Manhunter, John Constantine, and Zatanna. Then there's members of the Teen Titans, Nightwing, Speedy, Kid Flash, Bumblebee, Beast Boy, Starfire, Raven, Blue Beetle, Robin, Superboy, and Kid Flash number 2. Also, Wonder Girl. Forgot Wonder Girl. Members of the Green Lantern Corps include Jon Stewart, Guy Gardner, Arisia, Arcus Trumuk, Chaselon, Gallia Talia Zed, Green Man, Kilowog, Palakwa, Sadlok, and the Guardians of the Universe. Unaffiliated to a superhero team, Bat family characters include Batwoman, Catwoman, Batwing, and Batgirl. Unaffiliated to a superhero team, Superman family characters include Steel and the Eradicator. Unaffiliated to a superhero team, Justice League Dark characters include Etrigan, Deadman, Swamp Thing, and Black Orchid. And finally, unaffiliated with any of these categories are Bronze Tiger, Dr. Fate, and the Nightmare Nurse.